Now we have this awesome it's recording. Welcome everyone. Today is the 23rd of June 2022. Prometheus Dev Summit number I forgot. And probably 6 because month. Yeah, welcome everyone. As per usual, we follow the code of conduct of CNCF. We take this seriously, but also we don't really have issues with this, but still we do. For anyone who didn't see, we now have a different setup where we have the backlog, the voting backlog of everything in the public document. I'm also linking this in chat. As per usual, feel free to, thank you, Julian, to write yourselves in. Julian is just making the thing. So, and as per usual, especially for the people who are not on Prometheus team, please feel free to speak up at any point in time. We actively encourage you to do this. The only time when we have a call for consensus, then please only let Prometheus team members do the consensus thing. But beyond this, you're actively encouraged to speak up at any time about anything. Just by being here, please do. So I just came from a different call shortly after waking up, because different time zones, so I didn't prepare this as per usual. Let me see. We don't have Björn here, which is a little bit of a pity, because he put in so many new things, which is really awesome. Just had one where we had 4 votes. Ganesh, Bartik, Björn. We have Ganesh, we don't have Bartik, we don't have Björn. Bartik is sick. I don't think Björn was sick, but we can, I mean, this is something where we need Björn. Shamadin.
Yeah, he replied yes to the event invite, so maybe he will still show up.
Yeah, I can poke him. While we wait, we can in theory talk about governance, or we can talk, what else has 3 votes? Alert Manager Working Group. Let's actually start with this, because A, this is time limited, because if we don't do it now, it's useless. And B, of course, we have Josh here. I think it doesn't need huge discussions actually, but we should make some noise about this, I guess. Like on the mailing list, it's already on the calendar, but yeah, on the mailing list, on IRC, on Slack, on blah 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 blah. We should start making noise about the Alert Manager working group.
It's already on the Prometheus developers mailing list. I can throw a message on Slack and probably tweet and then send it your way so that you can retweet me from the Prometheus account. That works?
Yep, sounds good. Sounds good. Are you on IRC?
I'm not, but I can join.
Okay. Okay, yeah, then probably IRC and the users list also makes sense. We also have a Prometheus announce, which we haven't used for quite some time. Maybe this is a good excuse to also send email there. One of us will need to approve it, I think, but just focus and we can approve it and it will go over.
I'm lost in the notes. Where are you typing this? So I'd make sure to feedback the action items.
It's down in Dev Summit 6. Yeah, okay, this is actually a disadvantage of having everything up front, because it's not obvious where we take the notes. Maybe we need to, and by we, I myself need to move all the voting at the end of the document. That maybe makes more sense.
I'm going to put it here and then we can decide.
Yeah, no, this is the right place where you're currently typing. Yeah, I'm going to move the topic backlog to the absolute end of the document unless someone objects strongly. Okay, I see yawning and shrugging, so no one objects. Let's stay on the topic of WGs. We talked about having a governance working group. That hasn't been kicked off yet. I need to find some time there, I think. And the other thing which Björn put in there is if we have asked all existing maintainers if they want to be team members. I don't think we did. I also don't think, I'm not certain, like I know we discussed this, but I don't think we had consensus on getting everyone on, but I'm also not objecting to it. I just don't think it was as foregone a conclusion as Björn implied in his entry. But yeah, we can also just do it. I don't have a super strong opinion. Does anyone have an opinion?
So we actually, I'm just reading what we said in the last meeting at KubeCon, and we said that we have consensus on asking all maintainers if they want to become team. So we did have consensus at KubeCon on this.
Oh, I brain flushed this. Very good. Then, did anyone ask all the other maintainers? Okay. I mean, this would be nice because just today I had something where I had to do something for Kemal because he couldn't do it himself, and it would be more convenient if he just could do it himself.
And additionally, we said that Matthias Bonke is going to start the governance working group.
True, I don't think he did.
No, I'm just kind of reiterating what we said in consensus at KubeCon on this topic. But that's it.
I can poke him. He's not here today, as you can see. I can poke him about this. It's actually nice if. I'm also poking Björn on the side. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm working on a laptop in anger. Not my huge screen at home, and it's absolutely horrible. I can't work on laptop screens anymore. They're tiny. And I always lose the right tabs. Okay, so basically to summarize, we need to ask people, does anyone have the list? Does anyone want to do it? Else it's probably going to fall onto Julian and or myself to just ask everyone. And I can take poking Matthias. Okay, as no one is screaming here, I'll take the task of going through the maintainers list and everything, but I'm going to do this next week when I'm back in Germany. And I'm also going to take the task of poking Matthias.
So asking if they want to be maintainers doesn't make them, team members doesn't make them team members immediately, right? There would still need to be a vote.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so just checking if they even would want. Okay.
Yes. I mean, we always check with people beforehand. Formally speaking, none of this consensus has any binding power. As per governance, we need to actually have a vote per person.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, the likelihood of them saying no is not super high, but still. Good. I didn't get a reply from Björn yet. Let's see what is on Björn. We have the half-finished thing of having a flag to allow queries to include external labels, and ended on Ben wanting to write a design doc as of 2 days ago. That didn't happen yet. Should we talk about this, or should we? Ben, did you have any updates or progress there, or should we just shelve? Okay, and we just shelve it for next time. Also totally fine. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, then this doesn't have a lot of votes. It only has mine, but it doesn't need a Björn in the room, so I'm just going to pull it forward. It's a pity we don't have Frederick in here, but we have Matthias. So about symbols and about continuous profiling and about all those nice things. There's something which was spearheaded by Debian, as all good things in open source are, where there are debug info packages, where during build time or at build time, the symbols are not made part of the actual binary to just save space, but you still want to have them, so they're put into a separate package, and you can just install them if you want to trace whatever you have installed locally, which is super nice. But also it poses a problem, of course, as you scale and as you grow and as you have more different software, you need a repository, a registry of all those different symbol files. There's something called debug info-d, which is run by, in the meantime, I think 5 or 6 different open source projects. And I had a discussion, like with my TOC hat on, I recommended if we want to have this for CNCF, as in debuginfod.cncf.io, and encourage, maybe even mandate projects after a certain level, the latest graduated, I guess, probably earlier, to just publish all the symbol files for everything which they are publishing into the wild. It was generally well received, but I got the ask of, would there be a project which would be willing to trial this within CNCF to see if this is actually worth it, if this is actually horrible, blah 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 blah. And that's why I thought of Prometheus. Brian?
I'm just wondering to what extent this fits with Go, because Go will have a lot of debug information anyway. I mean, I think it's kind of halfway. It's not all in the format that is typically dropped by stripping, but it's I certainly think it's not the best place to try this out.
Even with the node exporter, where we are using CGO for some architectures.
And also from what Frederick mentioned, and I mean, as you know, I speak the least Go of everyone in this call, but from what Frederick mentioned, he would actually like to see debug info-d for Go binaries. So apparently there is some value, but I'm not the expert to talk on this. We have Matthias in the call. Maybe he can expand on this.
Yeah, so I I work on the storage side, so I'm not 100% sure on like the symbolization. I just pinged Kemal. Yeah, again, like there could be value in this for Prometheus as far as I know, but yeah, I don't know about the very specifics, because like Go has its own like symbolization things built in, right? So yeah. Generally speaking, I think it makes sense for CNCF to host something like that, but yeah, depends for Go on different levels, I guess. But I would need to defer to probably Kemal or Frederick.
Yeah, because in Go, the symbol table, I think it's just embedded directly, right? You don't need
exactly.
anything to.
Is it always? I honestly don't know.
In what we ship, yes, because we don't disable it.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like you can disable it for pretty much any language. So like there is value in this regardless. But yeah.
I mean, if we don't need it, of course, we simply don't throw the symbols away. I'm also more than happy to go back to TOC and say Prometheus is not the project to test run this with. Easy.
Yeah,
Like,
let me talk to Frederick and Kemal. I just think Kemal, he's actually in the open telemetry profiling call, so he can't make it here. Kind of funny. So yeah, I'll talk to both of them or like the entire team, and then I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
But thanks for talking to TOC.
No worries.
And yeah, I don't know if Prometheus is the best and first project to do this, but I mean, we know the project, so we could even look into contributing this if something needs to be done.
Okay. Julian, just to make sure, did you say that for node export and such it would be useful, or it's not useful there either?
I said it could be useful, but I am not sure either. But there we are not only using Go, but also CGO. So in some architecture, we are using some C libraries. Maybe there it's relevant. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, good. Also, as per usual, feel more than invited to help me write meeting notes. Tuk, 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 tuk. Okay. It doesn't have the most votes, but it probably makes the most sense. No, Ganesh left just now, didn't he? Because there's a lot of histogram related stuff, and we currently have neither Bjorn nor Ganesh in this call, which is not super great. Something which we can easily discuss now. Features. If we should have an API for signaling supported features in a Prometheus standard way. I do believe that we touched on this in a previous. Hey, Kevin.
Yes, we need this.
Yes, I also agree.
We need this not only for features that you can enable, disable, but just interesting feature that we add, even if it's always then in the API. I think it's useful.
Is this a new API or is this going to be part of the build info API endpoint? Not API.
Probably a new specific API.
Yeah. Brian and I discussed this some time ago. We also came to the conclusion that it's probably best to have this at the Brian in this call as a new endpoint, which just signals what capabilities you have, and you can just query them directly. In particular, this is also useful when you have Thanos, when you have Cortex, when you have Mimir, when you have others, and all of them signal what they can do through the same standard API. Full disclosure, it's also useful for Grafana because it knows what backends can do and cannot do. Because currently this is not super precise, but also it would be quite useful, for example, for maybe debugging and such when you know that something is enabled in a Prometheus or not, and it signals the capability that yes, this is on or off or what have you.
So I think at least twice we've reached the point where somebody said the next thing we need is a design document. And I don't think anyone's ever written a design document. I mean, in my head, the design is a URL so the request is a straightforward URL and the return is a list of strings. And one of those, so each string would be something like exemplars. So that implies that there's some well-known set of strings, or at least that all of the relevant people can find out who's using what string. I mean, I really don't want to over design it. I think you could sort of imagine amazing things. You could start DNS prefixing your features, and you could go to a lot of places with this, but I really want it to be simple.
I think it would be nice to have labels, not plain strings. So at least we have some, like, I mean, labels are well established within Prometheus. So we at least can say, I don't know, exemplars equals yes, or exemplars equals version 3, or what have you. Reading the room, no one is.
You mean the return is a set of name value pairs?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
a set of t value pairs or name value pairs, yes. And beyond this, we have Prometheus.io, and we have the Prometheus repository, and we can just have a registry for everyone who wants to add something that we ask them to please edit there. In theory, we can even use the compliance test suite to ascertain that no one is emitting anything which is not in this canonical list. And then we know that
that's
this
a good
is
example of going further than I would. I see where you're coming from, but if Victoria Metrics want to put X rate in their set of features, I think they should just do that today.
But there is a standard now, which is feature flags open feature.dev, I think, which we could look at, which could have something that may be unified in the community. I've never seen it in use, but I have stumbled upon that recently. Maybe we can look at the API they offer and maybe try to be compatible with that.
I mean, I think that's more a thing for like flag management for turning it on and off. I think.
Do you want to put a link in the notes?
I think it's it's literally openfeatures.dev. Yeah, but I think, like as Brian says, I think actually like just a list of strings maybe would be a good place to start. Otherwise, it's getting a bit complicated. But that's just my opinion as well.
I think from my side, I would love to see the key value pairs, mostly because you don't need to do the math of or tracking in the client where you need to look at the Prometheus version and they know whenever the feature was enabled for that version or introduced from that version onwards, and then try to guesstimate whenever you don't have the feature because it's disabled or you don't have the feature because you're not using the right Prometheus version.
Yeah, and for the software that Mimir, some features will be ahead and some will be behind any particular version of Prometheus. So I definitely don't want to have a kind of monotonically increasing version that tells me the answer.
Just to close one minor point, I absolutely agree that Victoria Metrics wants to emit X-rate today. They absolutely should be able to. I think there is value if we ask them to register this on Prometheus, that they say this is a flag which exists.
Yeah. I just kind of draw the line between asking people to be nice and calling it a compliance violation.
We have
don't really mind.
We have may, should, must. We can just flag this as an info or as a warning, but not make this anything which is failing anything. I don't think we should be failing anyone if they didn't, but we should surface it so people know that there is a place where they can put their stuff while they're testing their own implementation. Hey, Björn. We didn't follow the amount of votes because we wanted to have you in the room, and also Ganesh, who's now back, for all the good stuff about histograms. We have two things. Well, actually, the how to proceed with exposition format with new native histograms has one vote more than when to merge the new histograms into main, but I think it's actually more interesting, or like from the order of things, to talk about when to merge into main first, but I'm totally fine discussing either first. Any preferences? Also, sorry, did we actually close the other thing? Sorry, I don't get a lot of sleep while traveling, as you can probably tell. I have half a brain. Should we discuss any? So specific action items is look at open feature, and if we if open feature is not a match, we just JFDI something with Prometheus style labels. Is this the consensus? Should we have a call for consensus on this?
Prometheus style label or key value pair?
Name value pair, as Brian called them. I think name value pair is actually a really good.
So yeah, JSON.
We can also just do JSON. I don't care. We can. I mean. Okay, so then let's try a call for consensus. And sorry for butchering the order here of what we do when. Okay. Consensus. We will look at open feature. If it's not a fit, we will implement JSON endpoint. We will implement JSON endpoint with key value with name value pairs. All agreed? Anyone disagreeing? Should we also try for a consensus on introducing a registry for this, which is optional but recommended? No, Julian doesn't want it? Okay.
I think it should just be simple enough so that we don't need it. Hopefully.
Experience shows that it's not going to stay simple and people will try to do the same thing in different ways, and all of a sudden you have diverging things and you put all this pain on everyone who consumes this endpoint. My own gut would be to start with a registry, and we can always toss it away if we figure out we don't need it. But anyone who saw the X HTTP header mess and then things which started with X actually being like officially blessed afterwards, blah, 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 it always goes this way. So let's just try it. And if we don't get consensus, that's also completely fine.
Yeah, I just try. I really don't think that you are overdoing it.
Sorry, what?
I just think that this is overdoing it. I really don't see the value of having a registry for it.
Totally fine, totally fine. If you actively disagree, just say so, and I just can cancel call for consensus. Do you actively disagree, or do you just not think it's
Yes.
worth? Okay. Good. Then let's move over to histograms. Björn, you put both of those in, so I'll let you decide which of them you want to do first.
I think whatever we find out about the exposition format might inform when we want to merge this into main. Because like if we are pretty much into limbo and like continue to use the ancient protobuf, then that might be a reason to perhaps not merge into main a protobuf parser for the old protobuf format right now. Maybe, I don't know, but I think in the other way we don't have that many dependencies. Like the open metrics format will not say, I know we are progressing more slowly because it's merged into main or vice versa, right? So that's why perhaps we should discuss the open metrics approach first. Maybe we have no result yet, but I mean, that's also a result and we know it's kind of, well, but yeah.
So as a summary, of course, I know not everyone in this call knows about this. The intention of open metrics has always been that as soon as we have high resolution histograms, we have a version 2.0 of open metrics, because it's going to be a major change. It's a little bit of chicken and egg, because we need an implementation which is actually battle tested. Same as Prometheus exposition format 004, which is basically what OpenMetrics 1 is based on. Yeah, my ideal state, and Ben, because we have Ben on the call, please disagree with me. Whatever the actual implementers, as in Ganesh and Björn, think is good, should be the starting point of discussion within Open Metrics. In particular for protobuf, we will need something which does a text representation. I do have opinions on how to do this, but they're not super strong. But again, ideally, with my Open Metrics set on, I would like for the people to actually experience all the pain and writing the actual code to just say this is what we would like to see, and then we'll try to just take this as the basis or even as the result.
I guess my idea was we should reintroduce protobuf scraping into Prometheus so that we can at least try getting this in, because I think it would be really useful to have that back. And so being able to scrape iterations of Open Metrics protobuf format, even if we don't have a text format, would allow us to work on this and like unblock us from the chicken and egg problem.
I mean, I think we just need to, or we should start with, I don't know, axioms, design guidelines, design principles. And I'm mostly raising this here because I mean, the mindset in which Open Metrics is designed is just not compatible with my mindset. So I can't really say anything. I can't just ask the questions so that then Open Metrics can do their trade-offs, right? And like protobuf is the one thing where, I mean, so this is why I linked the issue where I essentially listed all the questions that what we need answers for, right? And what Ben just said, that's kind of related. So far, like right now, Open Metrics says, I mean, there's a protobuf, right? Open Metrics supports protobuf, period, great. So just Prometheus doesn't ingest it, and that's in line with Open Metrics because Open Metrics mandates text ingestion, but it has protobuf optionally. If I say anything that's wrong, to stop me. So here the question is here, if we want to stick with that principle, then we need a text format for the new histograms, period, right? And the question that Ben just raised is probably going exactly in the direction. If we went back to either or, we could just add the new histograms to the existing Open Metrics protobuf, reintroduce protobuf parsing into Prometheus, but not the old format, but the new one, which would probably be not such a big change in the proof of concept code that we have right now, which ingests the old protobuf. And then the only question, which is also in the issue I linked, is the current Open Metrics protobuf suitable to also host sparse histograms? Or, I mean, I haven't studied them in detail. I've just looked at them superficially and saw like, I was surprised that it compiles. Actually, I thought I found a basic protobuf bug, but that's details, right? I mean, we just have to find out if there is, if there are changes required, or we could even change the existing protobuf Open Metrics spec in a way that it would still be compatible with the old one, right? That's the beauty of protobuf.
So Open Metrics is still in draft. We could, in theory fix some bugs if there are actual bugs in the protobuf, and have a 1.1 version.
But we could probably not within 1.x declare that now protobuf is mandatory, right? Sorry, not mandatory. That and implementation that only exposes protobuf would be legal. So that's
using protobuf is legal, and we can use that. The fact that the text is required doesn't mean that you can't implement things in the protobuf first, because that's how we actually started. Is we made the protobuf and we massaged the text format to meet the protobuf.
Okay, that would definitely be a way as long as we declare all of this experimental, we could say this is not an open metrics compliant exposition library because it doesn't expose the new histograms in text format. But if you want to use it as an experimental setup, you could just use a open metrics ingester that ingests protobuf, right?
As long as it's marked in experimentally, you can pretty much do whatever, because I mean, it's important to get the messaging right and to not have users confused. But this is a chicken and egg, and we just need to be very clear and transparent about we actually want to try that things work in the real world before we hammer out the specification in an ivory tower, and then we have to walk back and fix things after. The other question which you raised, the reason why we mandate the text format is because historically it has been good for debugging and for adoption, that people are always able to see stuff in a way which they can understand.
Yes, which
so
is this is why historically Prometheus had the requirement there should be a format that Prometheus can scrape and a format that humans can read. And this was by coincidence, the text format fulfilled both, right? But now we have the problem that if we want to have an efficient representation, it will be hard to also make it readable for humans in text format, right? So a histogram representation that is nice for humans to read, that would probably be ASCII art of the histogram, something, or even a PNG or something, which you don't want to scrape. But even if you did it in a way that Prometheus could scrape it, it would be a more verbose and harder to decode version, which might still be okay efficiency-wise, but these are all the questions, right? And that's where the other questions come into the game. What is actually the trade-off between how human readable it should be and how efficient it should be for Prometheus to ingest, if it has to be text format, right? And the story back then was, if Prometheus also can do protobuf, you could always argue, if you want a fast one, implement protobuf. And if you don't care about fastness, you can also implement the text version, even if it's inefficient, but it's readable for humans. And these are trade-offs that have to be discussed. But having said all that, if we start with this, let's just implement open, let's kind of upgrade the open metrics proto spec with sparse histogram, implement that in the proof of concept, both ways, instrumentation library and ingestion, then it would unblock the proof of concept implementation, and we could discuss all the other questions later with the experience of having sparse histograms. I actually start to call them native histograms because people who come new to the game, they don't realize, like, they don't see the sparseness as the most important feature. So if I call them native histograms, I mean the same thing. So when we will have them out there in the wild, essentially, even if it marked as experimental, and then all the other questions could be answered, informed by our experience. So I would be fine if we just decided that one thing, right? That unless someone has ideas why this is not a good idea, but right now I think it makes sense, right? So put the new histograms into open metrics proto, could be just in a branch for now, implement that everywhere, and then that's the proof of concept code for Prometheus. I would then, next step, I would check out if there are problems with the current protobuf spec and histograms, if there are any collisions design-wise. But yeah.
I think we discussed this some time ago. So yes, absolutely, 100% agreed. And also, there's less attachment within open metrics to the protobuf, and also I would argue that for the end users it doesn't matter as much, because as you have a new major version, everyone is expecting things to be different on computer level anyway. For completeness sake, I don't think the text will ever fully go away, because else you end up in a situation where some libraries or some consumers only implement one and others only the other, and on the level of a wire format, you then don't have a wire format, because all of a sudden people can talk to each other.
Yeah, I think that having the text format is important just to debugging and to just see it in your browser, right?
And it will be horrible with high resolution or native histograms. I absolutely agree, but at least it will work and you still see all the other stuff. I do think that most implementations, in particular with high-res or native histograms, will actually start switching over to defaulting to protobuf, because it just seems to make sense. But it wouldn't be the first protocol in history where there is a fallback lingua franca thing and then a more efficient one, which is the actual happy path.
Okay, now I found one concern about this approach.
Okay.
my brain found a concern. I mean, Fabian is actually the right person to talk about this, because Fabian approached me. He would like to put the same experimental proof of concept stuff into the Java library. And I told him, if you want to do it right now, you have to bring back protobuf. And from history, I remember that having a protobuf dependency in Java seems to be particularly annoying. And the question is, if we want to do this just for the experiment, Fabian can probably answer this. Also, like this would, if you go down that road of just doing it in protobuf for now, then every client library that wants to support it for now needs to support protobuf. And I'm not sure how annoying this is for Python, Java, and many other languages. Yeah, done. Fabian.
I think it is annoying, but everything, like the alternative not to be able to start playing with it at all, is also annoying. So the question is more, what's more annoying?
I mean, we could now find people who are really good with the text format and just come up with something to represent the native histograms in the text format. And we could expedite this, right? This is just, I mean, if we just go for the protobuf, that I mean, unless there are some weird things in the protobuf that are incompatible, like structurally, it would be a super quick thing to do, to just add it there. Well, like designing a text version of the sparse histogram, doing all those trade-offs between readability and efficiency, then you create like of course that's the nature of of the text format. You have to create a custom parser for it, all those things, right? So this will just take longer, but it might be the better way if it's really annoying to now add protobuf to, let's say, the Java library, so that Java users can also try out native histograms.
What stupid idea, but maybe it's stupid enough. If you just put comma separated value behind your histogram line in the text format, and you just have this super long line. I mean, as long as it's experimental and clearly marked as such, it's ugly. It's most likely not the most efficient thing, but it's like on transport and on compute time, it's most likely not the most efficient thing. But on human time, for just getting everything into place and playing with it, might actually be the most efficient thing for humans to just hammer together.
I think that we should try an approach where you can start a line with a space and then it just reuses all the labels on the line before that one that does not start with a space. So every line would only contain the LE label, the value, and then you can have the exemplar linked to it. But you don't repeat all the values every time. And this could be also useful outside of the exemplars, like HTTP status, HTTP request total. You would only have the code label repeated between lines.
Yeah, that would make the conventional histograms more efficient space-wise, but the sparse histograms they just look completely different, right? They have spans and pocket deltas and so on. Yeah.
But we could also
My point was we could just have this on one single line behind one set of labels.
Yeah, I mean, it still means you would have a very obscure, but still it would be a defined format where you have to create a generator and a parser for, which we could do if it's worth it, right? If we want it.
I mean, given that Proto is relatively specific to Go, and there's other languages which we need and want to cover, having something where it's at least easy for the humans to write the generator and the parser, to not have so much overhead with like super complicated, highly efficient structure matched into text. I mean, Julian's idea also works. The one point I would make is not a white space, but maybe tab to make this a little bit more obvious and less likely for someone to fat finger and just have a leading white space for some reason somewhere. But beyond this,
yeah, it's just Julian's idea is just like it doesn't affect the native histograms, right? We still need. I think it's not much of a difference in terms of effort for the humans to create a parser for like an arguably makeshift, very simple, let's just have a huge line of numbers text format versus have a text format with some structure in it where you can actually see something. I don't think that makes a big dent. The big dent is really that you now have to think about, okay, there's this line of numbers, I have to read them all out, assign them to the right variables. I mean, what a parser does. I think that's not a huge difference. It would take away all the worries we might have. Is this now a good text format or not? We would just get peace of mind, and we'd say this is not a good text format. We're just putting something together so that it works. But then, of course, later we have to change it to a proper one anyway. So it's not. I'm not sure it actually buys us work.
It unblocks and it allows more parallelization of work, because we are currently, again, we are in this chicken and egg. And that's what I think we need to unblock. And if we do the most stupid thing which works, we have the risk of something which is a workaround becoming permanent. But beyond this, it would just allow everyone to get going. I mean, the one thing which we could potentially consider is if you, Björn, and Ganesh think about what is the most stupid but straightforward for a human to implement representation of this. Again, probably a long string with commas and semicolons and something. And just toss it out, and then Fabian has something to just implement against. And it might be horrible, but
already in the Prometheus query debug web interface, like in these demos where you showed the histograms, you saw the exponential histogram there as a kind of a text representation, right?
But that's already kind of rendered out where you don't see spans anymore, you just see explicit buckets. So that's I mean, this would be a format that is actually very close to human readability, and it will be really hard to parse for Prometheus. It might not be too hard, but we are of course risking that people dislike the new histograms because they think it makes Prometheus slow in scraping. I
mean the one with the square brackets where you have the
exactly, yeah. So this is where if we had to scrape format in that way, Prometheus had to read in the whole histogram, then had to find where are spans, where are gaps, then it had to do the deltas between buckets, has to sort them all into the spans. Well, the protobuf exposition we have now is essentially the instrumented binary is representing everything already in spans, embracing sparseness, and already gives you deltas between buckets. And Prometheus essentially dumps this directly into TSDB. Not quite, but almost, right? So this is designed to be small on the wire, fairly easy to present, and super easy to decode. And we would throw away that advantage with this very, very, like, it's not as readable as like an PNG that shows you the histogram, but it's very close to that, right? Which is, I think that would qualify as a good human readable text format. But it has this, it's definitely a lot of effort to decode, both for the coder as well as for the computer to actually churn through the numbers. I'm not sure if it makes a big if it's like so damaging that histograms might appear, the new histograms might appear as quite inefficient, or if it's if that's just fine. I don't know. I mean, nobody has done the research yet. But it would definitely be the solution. We are now creating a very human readable text format and going like full in decoding this on the Prometheus side. It would kind of maximize the effort, I think.
I also think that one of the reasons why Prometheus is so popular is because we have a text format.
Yes.
So
I still know people.
We cannot move everything to protobuf because I think it would hurt the project long term.
I strongly agree.
Yeah, okay, but we were talking about how to unblock things right now, right? And the idea was, should we, for unblocking, just do the protobuf? I mean, by the way, protobuf has a text representation built in, right? You can always just dump a text format of protobuf. Almost every protobuf implementation has this, and definitely client Golang, right? It might not look pretty, but that used to be enough in the old world when we said there must be a text version that like humans can read and you can look at in your browser.
From the point of view from a wire format, relying on some or most of the implementations to have their trend, but that doesn't matter. How about we rephrase it as such? For the protobuf, just get started, and if you need to make sweeping changes or fix this bug in the OpenMetrics proto, or like, I don't think there's strong attachment to the OpenMetrics proto, and again, there's also more precedent in just changing everything on API levels. So I think whatever is best for native histograms can be put into a new proto, and you just experiment with it. Done. At the same time, as a parallel thing, Fabian needs something to get going with Java, and there it makes sense to do the most stupid thing we can think of on text level. And
okay, if we want to get a working proof of concept as quickly as possible, and we will do some kind of stupid text format, right? Then I would actually not do the OpenMetrics proto right now, because I mean, even on the Go side, it would need a lot of rework to support the OpenMetrics proto and not the old proto, right? And then we need to change the proof of concept protobuf parser to do OpenMetrics. And we have to implement in Prometheus a parser for the stupid makeshift text format, which means it would just be more work, right? I think we should only do the as said, just for now, for the proof of concept, we should only go down the OpenMetrics protobuf road if that's the one road to go down for the proof of concept. If we want some kind of makeshift text format working the proof of concept, we should just have that plus the old protobuf for client Golang to make something work. And then, of course, in the final thing, we can put all the loose ends together, kick out the old protobuf, and so on. But I think that would just mean we now have maximized the work we need until we have a proof of concept.
And one last aspect is also, who are we doing the prototype for? And I think for people who want to experiment with this stuff and not for people who want to use it in production. And I think this changes the priorities. Yeah, but it changes a bit the priorities, because if you want to, that's the new data type, you want to see what it is, try it out, then text format is maybe a higher priority and performance a lower priority than if you want to use this in production. I mean, just.
Yeah, I mean, the prototype or the proof of concept should also tell us if this works at all, right? It could turn out this is it's less efficient than we thought. I mean, it looks quite good right now, but that might still be an outcome. And then if we don't know if this is just less efficient because our text format is so stupid, or this is just fundamentally too expensive, then we haven't gained a lot of insights. That's mostly where I I'm concerned if we just do the like if we of course we cannot prematurely optimize the prototype, right? But if we do something that might obviously be something to ask for if it's not working out in the end. But yeah, I mean, we could do this because we already have a protobuf. Like you could compare. I mean, if we just want it in other client libraries and we want some text thing, then totally let's go for makeshift text format and make this work. But then let's not go for OpenMetrics Proto for now. Let's just make this work. But that, like, not to lose the precedence here, Fabian, you would say putting protobuf into Java would be pain in the neck.
Yeah, I mean, it would be some kind of experimental. I don't even know if it would be part of a release or maybe just a branch. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, back then, I'm just not the Java person, right? Java is so long ago in my personal history. It predates protobuf. But this is what some people said, mostly Brian, when he maintained the Java client library, was very keen on getting out of protobuf because he said it's so much resistance from users if they have to do the dependency management for protobuf. And yeah, apparently dependency management is a problem in every language, just that the nature of the problem is different.
That's certainly true. But I mean, as we're talking about the POC for trying it out, I mean, I'm not even sure if this would be part of a release or if it's just an experimental branch. People can compile it and try it, but not, having it released somewhere.
Okay, we are out of time, right? But yeah, I mean, should we sketch out a super weird makeshift text format then?
I think yes. And I also think that it would be best if Björn and Ganesh, if you lead this, because you have the most context here.
Yeah, we also have the least time because we
fair,
are working on histograms all the time.
But that is the good thing, because if you time box it to, I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hours between the two of you, and you literally take the most stupid thing, which is just easiest to parse and to generate. Don't think about efficiency or about transport size or about readability or about anything. As long as it's text and as long as you can generate it and you can parse it, done. Does this sound good? Should we have a call for consensus about this?
What happens if we put a JSON snippet into the next one?
Honestly, it doesn't matter.
Marshal it.
Honestly, I don't think it would truly matter. If you signal it cleanly and if you delineate it correctly, I don't think it would matter. For testing, whatever.
For testing, yeah.
Like I think we have consensus that this would not be the final implementation, but for testing, if this is the easiest, then just do JSON. I don't think anyone would disagree.
We could end up with that. Who knows?
Okay, let me try and phrase this.
I would have imagined something closer to brainfuck than JSON,
but please with UTF-32, because it has more different white spaces, which you can use all of a sudden. Also, as brainfuck is only a language, not a transport format, you now need to write a self-generating program, which just the output of which when you run it after you train. Okay.
There might be a protobuf implementation in brainfuck. There probably is. Anyway, yeah.
while
Okay.
while she's writing. Oh,
Well, I have a potential dumb question here before we go. Is this only for testing the interoperability between the client libraries and Prometheus, or is this in order to run a test and see how the format looked like, or both?
I think right now it's just that we can implement the native histograms in non-protobuf based client libraries.
Okay.
I think that's the primary goal for now. And then everything else, I mean, having something running will inform all the other questions, inevitably, but more as a byproduct.
And then the next step of that would be implement it in the scrape code to be able to understand this format and store it within Prometheus, right?
Can you say that again?
So the next step is basically implementing the scraping of that format.
Yeah, that's the necessary work that has to be done. Yeah.
Okay. But for now, like, we don't care about the implementation of scraping. All we want to do is it possible to do it in text, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. It's just
Yeah.
how does it work out then? Yeah.
It's not about if it's possible, it's about having something which works and just unblocking, because we currently have a few cyclic dependencies, or chicken and the egg, or call it what you want, and to just unblock and get started.
Because what I want
Or move
to
forward, not get started.
and this might be obvious, it's something that I posted in the chat. I think people already know about this. It's not, I don't have any Rico moment, but I want to make sure we're not missing using something like this, which could be simple in order to get started and test without much effort. I think. I pasted in the chat.
That's the thing which Tom raved about recently, isn't it?
Yeah.
I also thought about this, but didn't want to raise it here.
Yeah, I think it's a bit orthogonal to the problem we're having, but it's nice for the future.
Okay. I remember being that one of the biggest advocates for having text is like the success of Prometheus, which is the debuggability of that. Basically, you solve that problem with that, right? So I know it's not directly related to a certain extent, but yeah, might be.
It's also the generating. I still know people who literally print F in their C code and they're happy and it works. And there's endless amounts of people who just hacked their thing together, and they made it work somehow, and they're happy that they have stuff in Prometheus. I wouldn't alienate this user base, this adoption driver without good reason. Like, we're way at time anyway, but we could, for example, have discussions about, hey, do we even need high resolution histograms in text format, blah, 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 blah. But in the end, on the level of a wire format, the perspective where I'm coming from here, and we're diverging more and more, if you take something which is 40 years old and has modbus, you can still read it out. If you take something which is 30 years old and has SNMP, you can still read it out. And that's the kind of thing which I have at the back of my head, that this thing should be able to long-term talk to other things and have a fallback which is reliable.
Makes sense.
To not at some point basically cut the legs of old installations of old formats. And I strongly believe that as a format, like with my open metrics set on as a wire format, we need to make hard promises about long-term stability and long-term interoperability, because else you're pulling the rug. And we do not want to have SNMP going forward. And everything else which tried to replace it failed. And we have no equivalent in the cloud native space. And OTLP is explicitly not about long-term stability. Like, it lost the initial 90 days, recompile, everything is fine, Google approach, but still there is no hard long-term guarantees or expectations there. And that's something which on open metric side, I think we need to have. Let's try for a call for consensus. Consensus. We will start with the text-based format. It will be experimental and not made for long-term use. Even embedding JSON is fine. Björn and Ganesh will time box themselves to 1 to 2 hours and come up with the format which is easiest to generate and parse. Efficiency is not a concern.
Okay, where should we publish this? Should we file an issue in the OpenMetrics repo with our results and then take it
you
from there?
can whichever. We can also just update the issue which you linked. I would go even further. You don't have, like, formally speaking, you don't have to wait on OpenMetrics with any of this, because it's clearly understood to be an experiment of the Prometheus thing, and OpenMetrics made the commitment to follow whatever Prometheus comes up with. But it still makes sense to document it, like just put it into this issue, or I can also do it. Just need to leave to a customer call in 5 minutes.
I mean, I guess it makes sense to have, for this like fairly detailed technical on the wire stuff, let's have a separate issue we link for the other one. Because the other one is more like the philosophical design philosophy thing.
Okay.
I think.
So we don't have too many people still here, but I'm still fine making call for consensus. So everyone agreed? Anyone disagreeing? Okay, 5, 6. Yeah, okay. Okay, I really need to run. I saw, Kevin, you wanted to talk about OpenMetrics. I don't know if we covered this. You can also feel more than welcome to reach out to this email address.
Yeah, no worries. I'm at an event anyway that I should join. Yeah, I read as much as I could so far, and I think we're willing to help with. Yeah, parsing, scraping. Yeah.
Cool, great. And also feel more than welcome to join the next time.
Yeah, it's happening every month.
Thanks.
We now have an agenda again. Yeah, I feel it. All right.
Also, maybe as a closing thing, for anyone who's not on Prometheus team, also feel invited to put stuff onto the agenda. We'll figure it out. We'll put this into a format. We'll do the usual voting on when we do it, blah, blah, blah. Feel free to do stuff on, to put your own things onto the backlog. With this.
Okay.
See you next month at the latest.